I think I made mention sometimes to some things, but never in great detail about it, about Eric. But his first time coming in there, I mean, you can imagine. I mean, he was trying to put WWE out of business. I give Vince a ton of credit for that, introducing him and hugging him on the stage. I mean, you got to think about he literally was going to put WWE out of business for a time. They were taking the water coolers out, they were cutting back. He was fighting for the company's financial life. And for Vince to turn around and still want to do business, come on, man. How many people could do that? You say whatever you want about Vince McMahon. He can see an opportunity to make money by bringing Eric Bischoff into WWE. Now, on a personal level with the talent, that's where I didn't witness everything. The only thing I witnessed was Flair wanting to fight him. And Flair, red in the face, yelling and screaming at him, and Bischoff very calmly. I may misremember some of that or how long it went, but Flair was not happy. And Eric was very cool, calm, and collected. The only thing that I had personally was I personally apologized to Eric in catering for leaving WCW the way I did. And he just said, everybody has their situation and everything, no harm, water under the bridge. I shook his hand and that was it. The Flair thing, that's all the detail I know, that Flair was hot, that Bischoff was there.
I hate to say future episode for the WCW thing, because we are going to revisit WCW in that the glorious run you had in WCW.
Thank you.
At that time. I
Industry changing. It was like it wasn't even as long as a Benoit or Guerrero title reign.
How often did you? I mean, I guess you would have worked with him in TNA as well, but how often did you interact with Eric in the WWE days? And here's another question: did he have any idea what you were doing for Heat?
No,
at the time,
had no idea. That's my guess. Why would he? He has so much other stuff to do. He was figured in each and every week. He might have walked by and saw me working Heat, but so what? The only interaction I had in detail with Eric outside of sitting down, apologizing, shaking his hand, and I got up and walked away, let him have, and he was sitting alone, dude. So you can imagine he was in a lot more stressful of a situation. And that's why I figured, well, if I go up to him, now's the time. At least it's not going to be anything where he's going to be, I didn't know how he would react, honestly, but I figured at least.
Was that day one? Was that day one that you apologized?
That was day one. Yeah, sitting in catering, all alone, dude, big round table towards the door. And then you had everything kind of, the food, the people. He was on a literal island from what I could see. So I just said, even if he wasn't like potentially had heat with the talent, which he probably did, at that time, I figured this was the best time to go up to him, talk to him for 2 minutes, get the closure on it. He could tell me to F off or whatever. I walk away. I worked an independent in Nashville, Tennessee for my buddy Julian Bradley, now he's a senator up in Wisconsin. He ran the show, and I worked Aramis Stinson on this show. We had a really, I thought it was a good match, but I didn't think it stood out in any way. It was just your standard match. It was the only time, the second time in my career, I'll talk about the one in WCW, my awesome run there, the era of Stevie Richards. Eric pulled me aside and said, I watched every second of that and I enjoyed it so much. And that's what wrestling matches should be. And that finish and the way you guys worked and the pace and the gears. He goes, I just want to let you know, I really enjoyed that match. And then that meant a lot that he even watched it. For all I know, he was just kind of like walking by, saw it, and it caught his eye. The time before that is when we started in WCW. It was Daytona Beach. It was one of the bars at the hotel. Raven went down to talk to Eric about something. I was there, and Eric said, yeah, he might have made Raven mad because Raven was trying to politic and pitch stuff. And Eric looked at me, and obviously Eric was trying to do everything he can to piss WWE off or WWF off. He was like, you look a lot like Shawn Michaels. He goes, I think I can do something with you. And he goes, we'll have fun. Just let me think on it. And Raven's like, hey, what about me? Never, you know what I mean? Forevermore and all that. He went back to talking to Raven. That was like a minute where he was like, I I could do something with you. And that was pretty cool. And I probably blew a hell of an opportunity, or maybe an opportunity to never work in WWF if that angle and character went through. I have no idea what he was planning to do, but see, the thing is, I never had Eric in a meeting where Raven walked out where he said, if you don't like it here, get out. I never had to go to my son's college wrestling tournament for Eric to say, you're fired. I've never been in that situation. So he and I have never had cross words, and really, why would we? The only thing I hate and I'm jealous of is the fact that he lives in Wyoming, basically at the base of the Yellowstone River, and that's my dream in retirement. You and I have talked about buying our land and getting Starlink and running the show from there.
Yeah, when I say our land, Stevie and his wife's land, by the way. Now, because you mentioned his debut, I've got a couple of follow-up questions.
I thought you were
Apart
chipping
from
in
Ric
for the
Flair,
land. Thanks a lot.
Hell no. Oh, wow, we expect me to. I'll chip in for the Starlink. How about that?
Oh, okay, great. I'll get the 100 acres of my own. You can handle half of a $99 a month.
With that being okay, who else had issues with Eric, do you think, apart from Flair? Did you notice anyone?
I didn't notice anybody, but there was a lot of interviews between the time WCW went under, these people went to WWE, and then did subsequent interviews as the internet was starting to gain traction. I would say the stigma of Eric, you can imagine, I give him credit for being incredibly courageous after everything he did, not only to step into a locker room with the talent and everything that may have had cross words with him back in the day when he was in power, but also like, okay, Vince is starting me out as GM. When's the F coming? When am I going to get screwed? When's he going to mess with me? And those days did come, throwing him in the dumpster, Austin beating him up. Hey, think about Austin. The FedEx firing in WCW. Wasn't that during the Bischoff regime? Yeah.
95. Yeah.
95.
Yeah.
That's when he came to ECW. So think about all that. But you know what the overarching example is? Heat really does always pass. People that are mortal enemies are now sitting at a round table for WWE Network and reliving the good old days in front of each other. Think about Bischoff and Mick Foley. Think about a ton of people that now they can coexist and actually have a civil conversation with each other. Maybe, dare I say it, become friends. Isn't it crazy?
Okay, here's the thing.
Meaning Hunter and I could be best workout buddies someday.
Maybe.
Probably not.
No, probably not. I mean, with his heart, if nothing else. Anyway, because you were saying this beforehand, and immediately maybe just doing the show with you so many times, it made me immediately jump. Can you believe that Vince hired Eric Bischoff, even though they hated each other, and Bischoff wanted to put him in WWF, WWE, and Vince out of business? And I was thinking, that's probably exactly why Vince hired him.
Well, please expand on your reasoning. What would be I mean, the petty reason and maybe the reason of respect. Like he might be like, I respect this dude for trying to put me out of business.
Yeah, but you're always like, it's the same with Ultimate Warrior. It's the same with Bruno. I mean, it's just maybe even just a point to prove that he can mend these fences, or the company can mend fences with people who have sworn up and down that they will never deal with them again, like Bruno, and it ended up being Triple H who taught San Martino into the Hall of Fame. And I mean, it cost WWE a lot of money because Bruno felt WWF or WWF had screwed him out of a load of money back in the 80s, I guess. So it cost him a lot of money to make it up to him, and then, they had a better, more fruitful relationship in Bruno's final years. Before we move off Eric, why was Vince and Eric immediately aligned in storyline? Because I just think, I know why Eric didn't go a year earlier in the invasion. He was offered, and Eric was happy just out of the business for a bit by his own admission. His hair was grey because his hair's naturally grey, and he was fat because he'd just been living the good life for months after being let go, and he just didn't want to appear on TV. So, he was feeling self-conscious. It wasn't the right time, but he would have been great in the invasion. But then a year later, Eric Bischoff turns up, and then immediately, it's almost like you could have almost done the invasion part 2, but it would have actually been good because Flair was there, and Scott Steiner would be there in a few months, and Goldberg would be there the next year. Kevin Nash had returned from injury, that kind of thing. Could have brought Scott Hall back. It could have been Invasion Part 2, but done well. Why instead throw cold water on that immediately?
Well, I would dare disagree to some point and give you a different timeline. In a way, Eric's smart because Eric's looking at 50 different people and nobody stands out except for Austin in the very end, right? Nobody stood out in the invasions. How will Eric Bischoff, just being another guy who's in power with people that aren't winning anything, if you think about it? I feel like if they never did the invasion angle and they really wanted to bring in the stars, and the initial thing was to basically have WCW as a separate television show, separate brand, bring them together at maybe the Rumble and WrestleMania, and Bischoff runs the promotion again, and it's separate. Now you have Eric Bischoff's team or Eric Bischoff's top guys against Vince's top guys, even Survivor Series. That's where I think Bischoff, but there's still that thing. In the very end, nobody can be better than Vince. Nobody can be better than WWE. Anybody that comes from another promotion has to pay their dues, has to pay their penance, and then in the end, they pay their penance again because they're not as good as the homegrown WWE talent. Am I off base with that?
Sting. 2015, and they couldn't get over it.
Yep. They never will get over it. And I guarantee you, I'm so shocked that I'm still shocked Cody got the push he did out of AEW but now they're proving a point of now that the business is completely exposed and will be more exposed with the writer's show. Now what they're doing is WWE saying, we're going to draw money and make this guy a millionaire and make $1 billion off him and prove that you don't know how to push your guys. There's a whole different motivation.
Yeah, at least that's a more healthy motivation.
Oh, yeah, you can,
I guess.
Hey, Vince, I was in AEW. I heard $1 million. Screw them. Screw them.
You were in Ring of Honor.
I was.
Which AEW now owns.
I was so actually, if you think about it, the Stevie Richards Ring of Honor run was right up there with the legendary WCW.